Hey, everybody. Hey, listen, welcome to Sunday nights, and things are going to be a little bit different. We have a prophecy update. I'm going to bring Scott Townsend in just a minute. He's going to talk about some things that might be a little bit unnerving, but we've just got to look at some things. Now, just consider about what's going on. So right now, with North Carolina, what is it? $750. Remember that happened with Lahaina. $750. You've got to be kidding me. When we start thinking about all of the different dynamics, all of the different things where money is going, let's work through a little bit of this. Check this out. Was it 24 billion to Ukraine? You start going through this: Ethiopia, Egypt, Syria, Congo, $9,000 per illegal immigrant. I mean, you just go through the list and you go, what's really going on here? And then $750 to Americans. This is not about caring about Americans. We're being lied to by our government. Okay, that's horrible what's been happening in North Carolina. Then if you're watching, especially people in Florida, I know you're paying attention to this. We have this hurricane that is developing. It looks like it's going to, I think, hit landfall on Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week. And so we have that coming. What's going to happen? And right now it looks like it's going to be a rather large hurricane. Hurricane, excuse me. Okay, we have that going on. And by the way, if you're wondering why I'm doing this format, then I'm bringing Scott in just a minute, I am theoretically going to be on a plane tomorrow to Israel. We're trying to get things ready. And also from the airport at LAX, Lord willing, Pete Townsend's going to be my guest. That'll be tomorrow. And then I'll be flying to Israel. So I look at that and I think of this. So Netanyahu is blasting the West, especially Macron. You have this arms embargo regarding Israel. I'm not sure if you heard about that. Emmanuel Macron from France wants to do an arms embargo against Israel. So what's really going on there? Unbelievable. Lots to talk about. And then, sorry about the fly. My dogs are out here. The fly's out here. All these different things going on. Check this out. You ready? This is breaking news. Brace for events tonight. They just canceled all of their flights coming from Iran. Flights from all Iran's airports are canceled from late on Sunday. So you're looking at all of these different dynamics that are taking place right now. Folks, again, you look at what's going on in North Carolina, awful, $750. That's it. If you're an American citizen, this isn't about helping you out. They're giving billions of dollars to people coming across the border. What in the world's really going on? Then you have terrorists coming across the border. Another hurricane coming, a very odd pattern, I might say. Very odd pattern. Last time a pattern like this happened, I think, was pre-1900, if I remember correctly, if ever at all. And then you have these events going on with Israel. The West is now giving money, giving 158 million to Lebanon. I'm looking, going, what in the world is really going on for citizens to find a way to safely leave? Listen, Israel has been announcing leave Lebanon. People haven't done it. And then Iran, they're shutting down flights from Iran's airports. Wouldn't those be people trying to escape? Do they not want anybody to escape? Are they planning on something? What in the world's going on? And like I said, I'll be updating from Israel all this coming week. And then also, check this out, Sunday night, 1 week from tonight, Naftali, he's a social media influencer on behalf of Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel. He's going to be at 412 Church in Temecula, 5 p.m. Friday, next Sunday, 1 week from right now. 412 Temecula. Naftali will be joining us. Okay, but with that, a lot is going on. But right now, I'm going to bring in Scott Townsend. We recorded this message earlier with Scott. There's some things here, quite frankly, as I mentioned, a little bit unnerving, alarming, a little bit scary, but we do have hope, because our hope is in Jesus Christ. But listen, we see everything coming with breakneck speed. I'll be updating you also tomorrow with Pete Garcia from LAX, from the airport, Lord willing, and then obviously from Jerusalem throughout this week, all Lord willing. God bless you guys. Let me bring in the interview I did with Scott. Hey, welcome everybody to Hope for Our Times. And, I haven't had this guest on quite some time. You guys are going to absolutely love this today because He always scares everybody. But he also brings hope, and really it helps us to connect the dots with technology, what in the world's really going on. So we're going to dive right into it. Please welcome my guest, Scott Townsend. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Tom, always good to be on the show.
Are you ready?
I am ready. It's going to be a deep dive into tech today, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this could be fantastic. So, Scott, by the way, is the one who developed the Rapture Kit. You see it right here, and I always get questions about that. But you are, how would I describe you and Dennis Swick, for example, Britt Gillette? You fall into this category of and Patrick Wood.
Yeah.
You know, just this category when it comes to technology to really help us to understand things that the average person just isn't aware of. So I'm going to have you start with this question. So you ready for the first one?
I am.
So Scott, how do you see the merging of global governance and technology, including AI, aligning with biblical prophecies?
You know, that's a 10-episode question there,
that is loaded.
That is really big. So let me do my best there. I think that global governance, by the way, you can't have 10,000 workers sitting in front of computer terminals checking on identities, approving purchases. I mean, just think about what we know in Revelation 13 and the beast system that's coming and being set up right now. You just can't do it manually. It has to be automated. So the problem with today's technology with regards to banking and things like that, on how you approve purchases and things like that, it's transactional. Do you have enough money in the checking account? Yes. Authorize the payment. That's not what is coming, though, Tom. The DEI, BlackRock, and all the elites want much more control over what people can purchase. They want to do inclusion. They want to do carbon neutral purchases and potentially affect the things that we are authorized to buy should we get to the point before the rapture where we're forced to consider using digital currencies and wallets. And by the way, that is coming like a freight train. Okay. So the idea is, how do you put governance? I recall our buddy Carl Schwab just a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago at the World Economic Forum, making a statement that I didn't quite appreciate, but I do appreciate it more and more now at this point. And he said, the greatest challenge we have, this is his words, and I'm paraphrasing, is global governance. So what that means to us as watchmen on the wall, as a biblical worldview people, is they have to find a way to assert control over financial transactions. And, oh, by the way, that's exactly what the Bible predicts will happen. So AI is the only way to get decision support around the approval process of transactions. You just can't do it transactionally like the banks have traditionally been doing it. So it is, it's why, partially why we see such a great, massive investment in AI and AI data centers, in chip technologies, and all kinds of wraparound LLM models. And we could talk maybe about one of the latest models that just came out of OpenAI in a minute. But that's what's happening. This is absolutely in line with what we could rationally expect to happen in these days. Remember, Tom, I have the opinion, along with several others, of course, including you, that the mark of the beast system as a system will be ready for the Antichrist. It's not going to have a GoFundMe project where the Antichrist scratches his head and goes, well, I guess we got to really get serious about developing all this now. And let's do a GoFundMe so we can afford it, right? Mm-hmm. That is not going to happen. It's going to be ready, and it's going to be offered to him, I believe, as an act of fealty, meaning that these tech oligarchs are going to bend the knee and say, here you go. Huh. It's almost like a offering, a satanically motivated offering of control over the world.
We built this for you.
They may not see it that way completely, as Dr. Hickson says, some are willing accomplices, some are innocent bystanders, but still part of that program. So whether they know it or they don't know it, they play a contributory role in what is going to be offered to the Antichrist when he comes after we are gone and he is revealed to the world.
Yeah, definitely what you're describing sounds like what we would read in Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel 2 with these 10 kings, Revelation chapter 17. It's very clear. These 10 kings, they hand him over the system. Revelation 17 pretty much says that exactly. They gave him power to rule as the king of the earth. So you look at that and you go, man, what you just described, we're building it now. By the way, everybody, because I know how you get on comments, it was Klaus Schwab. I know Scott accidentally said Carl Schwab, but
you're right. Thank you.
But it's Klaus Schwab, so we all get that.
With a K, yeah.
That wasn't a Kamala Harris slip. That was actually just a slip. So,
thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
So, okay, but with that, what you say just makes so much sense. I know we've talked about this before. The system has to be set up. Could you imagine? I mean, you can go back to. Let's just go back 100 years. H.G. Wells and the eugenicists. I mean, you start going through things. You look at World War II. You look at the Manhattan Project. I mean, you start fast forwarding through history. Then you start getting to the Club of Rome. You get to climate laws. And then the technocrats of 100 years ago wanting to develop the system. So it's been worked on for a long time. I mean, you can go way back before that, but the system has been worked on a long time. There's no way Antichrist could come on the scene, okay, let's start working on it now. So if it's already been at work this much, and especially over the last, say, 10 years, 20 years, you really see it put into hyperdrive as the climate laws have become more and more challenging, I guess you would say, manipulative. With all the things that you study and prepare for regarding technology, there's no way. Antichrist can't take 10 years, 5 years. He's got 7 years and really only 3.5.
3.5, yeah.
So you look at it, no, this thing has to be built, which is what the Bible really describes. The 10 kings do it, or they get it all together and say, here you go. I love how you put that. I have a lot more tech questions to ask you, but can I ask you a question that might seem unrelated to our audience, but it's related to Bible prophecy, and I do believe it's related to what we're talking about too. And then we're going to get back into some more things, because I want to ask you how soon you see digital currency coming about. I have reason to believe, and I can't tell you online, I can tell you offline, to believe it's coming in 2027 where you will not have cash anymore. Like I said, I'll fill you in on why I believe that after we get off the air, because I can't say it here. But with this, the state of affairs in China and the spillover risks, all these things tied together. But can you speak to that for a minute, and then we're going to get back into this side?
I am fascinated. I'm fixated on China right now. And there are two key sources of information that I draw on. And China Update is one of them on YouTube. Very technical analyst and very sound in his presentations. And the other one is China Observer. And one of the things that I've noticed in the past 3 or 4 years is the fragility of the real estate bubble there in China, where I think the number is 70% of people's wealth that's the average day person. They invest in property, not in stocks, bonds, and crypto. So it is frightening to see what is happening in China and the deterioration of their economy, the amount of debt that they have because of all of their global initiatives. It's a mental misjudgment, I think, to believe that they can project their Silk Road initiative all over the place without massive debt and financial consequences, Tom. So what I see is the first clue that I got to start listening more closely about China is Evergrande, their largest property development company, started defaulting quarter after quarter on their debt servicing obligations, and that continues. They just don't have a solution for it, and now more and more people are doing it. But that's kind of intellectual challenge. When you look at the emotional side of it right now, I am just in tears, Tom, over how these things are impacting the average everyday person in China. China Observer lets me see what's going on. The unemployment, the people that are just milling around on the streets, basically with no jobs, new college graduates that are applying 400-500 applications and getting crickets. There's no jobs. Everyone is shrinking. Industries are collapsing. Movie going, discretionary spending is abruptly being pulled back. And it is heartbreaking to see the impact of this. And I really pray, our audience should pray for China and China's people right now that are going through the ringer and need a biblical worldview to put, everything in perspective. And so there is a massive opportunity for the gospel because there's so much pressure coming in that the people cannot escape it right now. And so this is a plea for us to pray.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think there's a misconception about China in some Bible prophecy teachings about them being this great powerhouse at the end. But the Bible, when I look at the Bible doesn't actually say that. It teaches differently. So I personally have believed for a long time China's going to go through a collapse. I started saying it years ago, and people told me I didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, well, this is what the Bible actually does say and doesn't say.
Right.
And people aren't realizing the dynamic with that. I mean, I could see China's just saying, hey, we're going to do whatever is necessary to save our skin, go to war. We know they're starting to work a lot more closely with Iran right now.
Right.
And they hate the United States for obvious reasons. So, I mean, the chances of so many different dynamics taking place, whether it be Taiwan, whatever.
Let's talk about Taiwan for a second, because listen to this, Tom. Think about it. A desperate China is a very serious threat. And things are collapsing. Xi Jinping is under intense scrutiny and pressure to fix basically the unfixable, just like so many other economies in the world right now. I just watched a little mini documentary on the Chinese Navy, and the military prowess of China has swelled incredibly over the last few years. But I think it's a paper tiger situation. Yeah. I've heard of serious technical flaws in the Navy, and these impressive ships that they're building actually they're not built very well. They don't have the advanced technologies. They're like 10 years behind on radar technology and things like that. And just to mention their chip industry, which is why they want to go into Taiwan, their chip technology is unbelievably hampered right now by U.S. sanctions on tech exports to China. And even the Dutch, who have like a worldwide global expertise in ultraviolet lithography, which is used to imprint the first parts of how you build a chip, layer after layer after layer. They're world experts in it. They're now, they're being constrained by these types of policies as well. And what is China going to do? It's absolutely putting them in a vice. And out of desperation, to distract the people, this is classic move by a government, unethical government, to distract the people with their problems by going to war and having a changed narrative and changing the news cycle to be all about the victorious China thing and what they're going to do to Taiwan. I'm very concerned about Taiwan. And as you know, most of our military assets are actually deployed in the Middle East right now. We're stretched pretty thin, Tom. And Monkey, does a phenomenal job of talking about that.
Yes, he does. By the way, everybody, we have Monkey Works coffee right here in the Hope for Our Time store. Monkeys, yeah, does a fantastic job on it. One of the things with Taiwan, from what I understand, is they kind of have the Samsung mentality when it comes to their chip industry. And from what I've been told is they are ready to burn everything down to keep it from getting into the hands of China. And I wonder if the U.S. might be part of that. And also, it sounds like Israel's in a position, if that did happen, Israel's in a very key position to be able to step up into the chip industry production. You know,
Yeah.
and when you look at that, I mean, you start thinking of Ezekiel 38 implications. What are all the various reasons that that Russia and Iran would come against Israel? I mean, there's so many different moving parts right now, but when you look at them, you go, wow, there's so many different ways Bible prophecy could be fulfilled. It's not a coincidence that all of these different dynamics are taking place, which, by the way, I got to ask you this, a couple more things. I have a lot more questions to ask you. Like, I really want to get into, what's your estimate for bringing about digital currency? It's going to come. I believe we aren't going to avoid it. But before we go there, I want to remind everybody that there is a rapture. You know, yes. the rapture praise has praise God. There's so much pressure against anybody who teaches in a pre-tribulation rapture right now, or just the rapture at all. Like, you know, our friend John Haller, he's pre-wrath, right? But any teaching on the rapture right now is ridiculed and mocked. We're pre-trib. I believe we are raptured before the tribulation begins for many different reasons. One of them is we are the ones who are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, standing in Revelation chapter 5, when Jesus begins opening up the first seal of the seven seals. So that's us there. So I do believe we're raptured before the tribulation begins. But there's such great hope in that. But we are projecting into what's coming. But with that, everybody, Scott did develop the Rapture Kit. Scott, what's the purpose of the Rapture Kit, and how did you come up with that? I know we're going to get into these other things, but can you go there first real quick?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll do a mini thing. You know, here's where the motivation came from. I know that the primary way for people to leave resources for those that they love after we're gone, these are for their friends, family, and for their co-workers, et cetera, is to have a letter put in the Bible. And I realized that we could do better and more. The letter is the number one important thing you have to do, because that is that person's voice to their loved one after we're gone. And yet, we want to train, equip, and raise up a new generation of leaders and believers in the next, phase of God's redemptive plan, which will be in the tribulation. And we know that millions and millions of people will be, saved, because in Revelation it talks about their numbers can't be counted. And so our Rapture Kit is designed with a USB drive to leave tons of resources. For example, Bibles explaining what happened and why. There's sermons, there's video teachings. Tom, we have your entire 40-part Revelation series in video on that Rapture Kit. So thank you again for contributing that. And so it's just tons of stuff that we can give. It's almost like a baton of faith, the breadcrumbs of our faith, handing into a next generation, because they're highly concealable. And we see a lot of persecution, and they may be burning. I watched Disciples in the Moonlight, by the way, an excellent movie about what it looks like when Bibles are deemed hate speech and illegal, and they are confiscated and burned. Everyone's thrown into prison. Very sobering, very realistic, and beautifully done movie, by the way. I do recommend it. Yeah. So that's why we did the Rapture Kit.
Amen. Thank you. I'm convinced it's just a matter of time before Bibles will be outlawed, Bible software, or Bible apps, I should say. But I like this. I think it's so cool. And it has this, so you got the USB in here. And by the way, if you want it, we do have it at the Hope for a Time store. We also have this. Scott, you've seen this. It's this so cool. It's a Rapture track is basically what it is. Really cool. It's the rapture, what happened and why. It was by Pastor James at Perspective in Prophecy, and he did such a great job putting this together. But this is free if you want the Rapture kit. If you order the Rapture kit from the store, we'll give you this free too. It's totally cool. Scott, I look at this and think we keep hearing about hate speech and the real motivation behind the hate speech laws, what we see going on with Elon Musk, the guy from Telegram, all the different dynamics. Brazil, hey, let's shut down this, let's shut down that, what we have here in America. It has to do with this book. If this is the end game, is this book. And if people think that's not true, well, look at China. Look at Islamic countries now. You can't even, as you know, Scott, you can't even take a Bible on the Temple Mount because the Muslims won't let you have it up there. So we're in this bubble, but there's a reason for the hate speech. And I would encourage you guys to think through, get all the Bibles you can written in the Rapture kit and this Rapture brochure. Like I said, we'll put that in free for you guys too, but it's just great tools to have. Okay, Scott, I'm going to ask you, and thank you for putting together the Rapture kit. That's all been your vision. Thank you so much for all your hard work on it. It's huge.
And my team.
And your team. Yeah. I got a team of 9 people. People don't understand that. It takes 9 people plus a team of volunteers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 9 plus. There's probably 15 people just to put together what we do here every day. And people, there's a lot. We just keep praying, okay, Lord, we live by faith. Help us through another month. Right. Anyways, all right. So with the digital currency, how do you see it? It has to come about. I don't see any.
Well, it's already here, Tom.
But I mean, it has to be implemented in the greater sense for the mark of the beast to come about.
So first of all, digital currency as it exists today is a foreshadowing of what that one world economic system will raise up at the right time. Because think of it, most digital currency today is decentralized. That means it's not controllable. So the problem is that it doesn't fit into the narrative. So therefore, I think, and others think, that digital currencies will actually be declared illegal to hold, just like they made gold bullion illegal to hold in the United States back in the 1920s, whenever. And so I think that they got to burn everything down. And the best way to do that is to crash stable coins, which are they're pegged to the dollar. So it's roughly $1, at any given point in time. And that's how you store digital wealth today, in a stable way. It doesn't go up or down more than just fractions and fractions of pennies. So it is, going to come. It's not here yet. And the thing is that what's happening is there's many learning and training exercises of adoption to get people conditioned to it. For example, I think I just heard that Denmark is adopting it as a country, and that makes sense. Some of those European countries are all in. They've left the biblical worldview behind a long time ago. So there's more and more adoption. And that is just, once you can get people used to using digital wallets, which is why I've been so concerned about the last email I got from the Department of Motor Vehicles here in California, Tom. I'm sure you got the notice that said that the digital wallet, the state is going to put your driver's license on a wallet. And that is how you are going to prove your identity. Hello. California is a leader in how it rolls out around the United States, for good or bad, mostly bad in California. However, it's coming like a freight train. And I think they want to keep it kind of quiet right here in the United States. It's not covered very much. Mm-hmm. You have to go out and get the news. You just can't wait for it to come in through your inbox. So I think, Britt Gillette is an expert, our mutual friend, on these things. Patrick Wood of Technocracy is extremely solid in his thinking about these things as well. And so I just think that the chokehold is coming.
I see. I have a friend in Australia, several, And one of my friends over there, John, who's been on here a few times, has been keeping me updated on this coming to Australia. And apparently it's coming there like any day is what it sounds.
Australia is a proving ground for the World Economic Forum.
Yes, I mean,
just like Canada.
Yeah, go back, Canada, Australia. You look at the last 5 years exactly. We had the truckers shut down. Remember that? Close their bank accounts. So you look at how all these things operate. So John was updating me on things going on with Australia with the digital ID, and then all of a sudden I read. It couldn't have been a week or two later. Guess what's coming to California? It must have been what we got in the mail. Maybe that's what it was, but we aren't hearing about it. But it is coming, and of course it's going to be sold as this is for your good, this is for your safety. We know this is a trap. The whole thing is a trap. Let me ask you this, Scott. And you can speak to the trap or anything, but here's the question. What key technology trends are you observing from your technologist perspective that I guess we say maybe people aren't paying attention to, we need to be aware of, or something like that? Maybe updates in AI.
The only way to do digital adoption today without the actual mark, so the precursor to that is mobile phones. It's mobile payments. And the reason for that is that, I can't remember the number, but it's almost 80% of the world, adults in the world, have mobile phones. So the thing, and remember, let's not forget our buddy Elon and his Starlink mesh floating around up in the low Earth, orbits up there that put a communication system. And they just announced, incidentally, that they are going to begin supporting cellular conversations, not just internet traffic. So there you go. Wow.
Help us.
They flip a switch, and all of a sudden they're capturing traffic from cell phones. And
so this is sounding kind of somewhat alarming. So how's that in layman's terms? I mean, what you're saying is this just takes it to another level.
It does. It's another precursor step. Remember, at the top of the episode here, Tom, we said, and this is the evidence of this stuff, that the beast system is being set up today and has been for years. So Elon didn't begin Starlink yesterday. He's been doing this, for years. And he's got accomplishment after accomplishment. I think he's had over 200 launches this year alone. Each launch that they do, their Falcon 9 rocket carries 21 satellites. Think of the math. So when you look at Starlink, there's a globe that images in real time the pattern of all the satellites floating around the Earth. Go look at it. It is fairly sobering to see that there's really no place over the entire world, including the middle of the ocean, for example, where there is no coverage.
We need to pull up a picture of this while we're talking. Hey,
if we can, that would be very good.
Yeah. Okay. Now with that, take me back. I'm pretty sure. So we're coming up on 5 years. Isn't that crazy? 5 years we're coming up on. Yeah. All right. I'm almost positive, Scott, it was pre-COVID when I had started doing reports on Elon Musk and his predictions for him launching his satellites and how many he was going to have done by like 2022, and talking way back then. So it was pre-COVID, wasn't it, when this news started coming out and he started doing these things?
I'm looking up that Starlink coverage map. I didn't want my keyboard noise to affect everyone.
I'll tell you this, while you're looking it up, I have Starlink at home. I wouldn't have internet if I didn't have it.
Yeah,
because you just get in a rural area. We don't have cable. We don't have FiOS. We don't have any of that where we live. So.
All right. I found the website. If Matt wants to pull it up, it's satellitemap.space.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get it up. Okay, keep going.
So I think the goal here is, and let's take a commercial break right now, Tom.
Okay.
Let's just consider right now what we're seeing right now in not only in just the span of your outstanding updates that you do at a voracious pace. It's we need to really take stock of what's happening in our world and what we need to do. Sometimes I feel like the body is frozen in fear, maybe, or in anxiousness. And one of the things that I love about your program and your ministry and your heart, Tom, is that you take those news because the body needs to know, the Watchman community, of course, but you also put the hope into this. And so my reminder to everybody on the episode watching here is we see this and we should, as we see these things, process that fear and anxiousness as a form of motivation to be about the Father's business and to let go of lesser things, to work on sanctification, the trajectory of our maturing faith. And look, I know a lot of people, myself included, look at our Christian performance over the past. I've been a believer since 1978, so it's been a while. And I know that I'm not, where I should be in my maturity. And that is a form of discouragement. Think about the prodigals that are out there not knowing how they can come back because the enemy is injecting noise into their spirit about, oh, you can't come back. It's too late. The Father will never take you back. You've done too much. If people only knew, this narrative that spins. And we have to take authority over that stuff and help people to connect the dots and to give them our hope. And recently I've been imagining what it looks like for the Watchman community, those that know and that are awake, not woke, but awake. We are the ones that should be the center of calmness in our sphere of influence. Because we know the biblical worldview, because we know the promises of the Lord and what he's doing with us right now. Isaiah 46, 9 and 10, where the Lord puts a stamp of authority over the entire creation. I know the end from the beginning and I will do all my purposes. I'm summarizing. Isn't that reassuring to you? And so the goal is for us to process this stuff, and it may sound dark, but actually let's change that narrative to say, all right, I know what I need to do now because each of us has an individual sensitivity to calling from the Holy Spirit. Our gifts, abilities, resources are perfectly tuned for us by the Lord. So we have to find our purpose and dive in to the best of our ability. I hope that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I'm going to ask you in a minute to give us an example of what could go wrong as we consider AI technology. Maybe give us an update on the AI industry, which you kind of already did, but you probably go in a little bit more, and what could go wrong. I'm going to ask you that in a minute, but I want to go here first because I want to go over something you reminded me of. Just as we look at these things, we don't need to be afraid. As Scott said, the Bible tells us, God himself says in Isaiah 46, he tells us the end from the beginning. Jesus himself said both the night before he is crucified, where he's talking about what's going to happen to him. He's going to be crucified. He says, see, I've told you these things beforehand. He also said that again in the Olivet Discourse regarding the second coming. See, I've told you these things beforehand so we would know. And I look, and it's like, Scott's like the Bible's given to us when we understand it from a watchman's perspective. Hey, look at what's going on here. We turn the page, we go, wait a minute, the Bible said this. Oh, here's the answer right here. Ezekiel says this and this, right here, chapter 37, Ezekiel says this. In chapter 36, he says this. Wait a minute, Isaiah 46 says this. Wait a minute, Matthew 25 says this. And then we go through the Bible and we go, God gave us the answers so we would know. So this is our book. The devil doesn't want us looking in this book. Seems most pastors don't even want you looking in the book for these answers, but God does. He gave us this book so we would know. And I want to ask you, everybody, if you would please like, subscribe, share. It's the only way, this video, it's the only way we can get the word out there. It helps us to combat the lies with the truth, to bring awareness. It's free to do that. We need your prayers, support, and one of the ways you can really do it, people say, what can I do? It's free to just like, subscribe, and share these videos, and it would help out both Scott and myself to be able to get the truth out there. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. It really, really does make a difference, and we want to make a difference till Jesus calls us home.
Amen.
Okay.
I have something very, very interesting that has happened to me, Tom. Just two things about AI and what I'm seeing out there. Not news, but things that have touched me really personally. I'm looking at, the development of AI, and I'm reminded of the outstanding work that you did, Marking the Masses book, and which I read and voraciously consumed it. And I'm reminded of you making a statement in one of your interviews about the fact that your dad, kind of knew from inside the Silicon Valley Club, if you will, the elites that operated, the technocrats back in the day. And these are the precursors to what we see today, of course. And he overheard conversations about control. And that was 60 years ago, correct?
Yeah, it was. He was involved in it, and you're right. He was in the beginning of what would become Silicon Valley. Pardon me?
Fairfield Semiconductors?
He was with Teledyne.
Oh, Teledyne, that's right.
Teledyne, and then General Dynamics.
Right.
So he was with, it was Henry Singleton. It was all these guys, George Komarsky, I think his name was, Kamensky. It was they were NASA people, IBM. They were these guys who, MIT graduates and so forth, the brains who put together Silicon Valley. And it was, I think, 1961. I actually have it documented in here when it was, the names of all the different people who, Scott, I'm sure you would recognize at least half the names. And then he was offered to move up to San Jose. These were companies only had like 5 people at the time, 10 people. And my dad was a metallurgist. That's what he went to school for. So that's why he got hired, because of that. And the development of the silicon chip from where it came, I think 1948, this thing's moved, the transistor and so forth.
Right.
But so he was offered to go up to San Jose. Hey, Jim, we're gonna move all the tech industry up to San Jose. We've got big plans. And we know, of course, comes Silicon Valley. And then my dad said he ended up not going because of my mom, but my mom said, no, we're not moving up there. But she was originally from up there, but she said, no, we're not moving up there. So they didn't move. But I imagine how much my life would have been different. I was only 3 years old at the time, 2 years old. So would have gone, and would I even been a pastor? Of course, God is sovereign. He would have worked all that out. But I would have been raised in what we know as Silicon Valley. But it was that
excellent book. I highly recommend it. And if any of our audience have technical friends that are dubious about, the encroaching system that's coming, your book, Tom, helps people understand and connect the dots and to see how far back this thing goes, right? So I do have a update on Strawberry, now formerly known as O1. From OpenAI. This just came out, this new model, and it is the first publicly released chain of reasoning AI model. So this is still a large language model known as an LLM. But what is distinctive about it is the way that it processes queries. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read a sample prompt that I put in. And I just want you and our audience to hear the reasoning that it is doing. It's capable of reasoning, and it's disclosing its reasoning before as it's formulating the response to you. And I think this might be very, very revealing to show you today, publicly available. Well, it's in private beta, but I have access to it. So it's basically, I'd like to read the prompt, and it's going to sound technical, but I'm asking it, what is the best technical stack for developing in Next.js? Is Next.js the most refined development language? Give me 3 updates on Cursor AI integrated development environment and your thoughts on what all these advances mean for independent developers and solo founders. Okay, that's an interesting question, compound question. Now, what is mind-blowing, and I'm not a fan of this, by the way, just don't get confused about that, but I am fascinated. It starts thinking, Tom. It's thinking, and you can see what it's thinking. And then you can hit the drop-down menu, and it will tell you what it was thinking about before it gives you the answer. I want to read what it was thinking about when it was trying to process my query. Piecing together the best technical stack. Listen to the word. I'm figuring out the top technical stack for Next.js and exploring its status as the top development language. Also, I'm noting 3 Cursor AI IDE updates and their impact on solo developers. Next thing it's thinking about. Piecing together the stack. Okay, let me see. Look at the language. Sounds human-like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me see. It's disarming.
Very much so.
For building with Next.js, I'm combining React with Node.js for front end, blah, 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 blah. I'm also using state management tools. Okay. Next thing, clarifying misconceptions. This is where I get corrected on something I said. Watch this. I'm thinking about correcting the misconception of Next.js as a language, as it is actually a framework built on React and Node.js. And so I got corrected, Tom.
Wow.
Politely.
Okay. Yeah. It was very polite.
Yeah, it was direct, though. So evaluating the impact. Listen to the language. I'm mapping out how advancements in these technologies could significantly benefit these indie developers and solo founders. Highlighting achievements. Next.js excels in this. It talks about that. Evaluating the tools. I'm examining a range of design, state management, data fetching, back-end integration, database authentication, testing, and then it crunches through JavaScript frameworks. It then goes into consulting official sources, and then it finally wraps with an analysis on that impact to entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, basically. And this took, how long do you think it took to think and to gather all of this information? Now, this is a lot slower than ChatGPT 4 Omni, okay?
Okay.
And Claude Opus.
So this is a lot slower. I'm pretty sure
it's a lot slower, on orders of magnitude slower. But it took 21 seconds.
Wow.
For it to think and to gather this and to do this. And this is why this version of AI right now that just is being released soon is basically the first real market evidence of what's called chain of thought reasoning. And you can see human-like, oh, I need to think about that. And what about that? And I got to go check that. And you can see how human-like that thinking process is. It is not human. Do not be confused about that. This is neural processing that actually is just a language model that predicts the next thing that should be done. But there is an improvement in its ability to do rational thinking at this point. And of course, the end game of this technology is going to be AI agents, in which you say to a bot network that you have, and I'm thinking of Britt Gillette and his thinking about bots and bot network mesh design, and you just command your AI, I want to do this, and then it deploys 100 AIs, each of which have this type of thinking process, and then they start working on it, and then they come back delivering some kind of a solution to you. So it's really stunning progress on AI. And if this doesn't give us an example of that higher level thinking process that AI possesses even today, then you can only imagine what's being done behind the curtain with militaries and governments around the world.
Yeah,
so
things that you're not even aware of.
We're not aware of it.
Yeah, from what I understand, some of these things have been in development a long time. I mean, my dad told me things that he knew in the 1960s that didn't start coming out, that we didn't see until the 1990s and the 2000s. He says he said, well, yeah, we were talking about this, we were talking about that way back then. Scott, you look at this, you throw in quantum computing, we throw in how advanced the U.S. military probably really is that we're kept in the dark of. In other militaries, everybody wanting to be at the top. Let me ask you this question. How do you see AI evolving as we look at the coming tribulation period? So you have two different dynamics. There's that dynamic. What's going to happen in the tribulation to pull this off? But at the same time, can AI be used right now to help us prepare? It can be used, I look at it like technology. You listen, your phone can be used for good or bad. Internet can be used for good or bad. It seems now we're at this place where you can use it actually for good at this point, right?
Yeah, and I can help our audience with my thinking on that, Tom, because I use AI every day. But here's the boundary as a user of AI. I use AI for discrete problem solving, for programming, for debugging, and for helping me implement technology, okay? Software, especially. What I do not use AI for is anything in which it could present or assert an opinion about the Bible or biblical worldview. I do not trust it as far as I can throw it. The narrative inside, and let's just cite one of the big, oopsies that just happened with Project Gemini with Google that just came out maybe 4 or 5 months ago, where they were so overly sensitive to DEI initiatives that when asked, about George Washington crossing the Delaware River with the iconic thing in the boat with the American flag in the background, it visualized that with peoples of all ethnicities, it's just so far detached from reality. It was asserting something that was not true, historically speaking. And so it's pretty frightening to see its control and its opinion. That's why I'm very, very cautious about, where that boundary is for me personally. And I do encourage, look, Tom, just yesterday, because I am a subject matter expert on AI technologies, I have a tech background, I use it, I'm a software guy. Someone asked me, Scott, I'm hearing somebody using AI to construct their sermons and Bible studies. What do you think? Well, I just gave you my answer. Capital N-O. When it comes to having AI do the work that we ourselves are called to discern as a Berean and to present in stewardship, the Word of God in stewardship to the audience that we are talking to, that is a bridge that should never be crossed. That is a bad thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see it. It's going to happen more and more too. I've been in ministry for 30-some years, and I guarantee you it's coming like a freight train.
Well, it's one thing to have it help you gather research and information. Okay, that's a discrete thing.
Yeah.
Go find me this. It's pretty good at that.
That's well, you do that now on your own with Google search, right, or something like that.
Well, Google's faltering,
Well, but I mean that's type of thing. You would search here, you would search there. You used to go to libraries to do your search. Then you could do it on your PC and your laptop through the internet. Well, now AI, so that's research. But listen, I've seen this for years. I know pastors who would purchase a sermon from a sermon website, and they would, as if it was theirs, where they didn't spend any time preparing. So I already know what was done out there. So, I mean, for me, I can see this exploding with servant material, and also with the lies that are going to come. Because it's only as good as the humans that program these things, right?
It's as good as the information that it's trained on and the biases that it is asserting over the information.
Perfect. Okay. So with this, I look at Psalm 2, and Psalm 2 to me projects into the future. Although man in his heart has all said these things, the kings and the rulers of the earth, they conspire against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us cast off their restraints from us, the restraints of the Lord.
Right.
And I see what's coming as that. Of course, the Bible says the Lord will hold them in derision. He'll laugh at them, and he will also judge them. So I believe it's all future, ultimately, to have its fulfillment. But it's coming as we see the leaders of the world, the leaders in the tech industry, the science industry, the political world, the media industry, the UN, seems they're all getting together saying, let's cast off his restraints. So this book becomes the hate speech, AI, and what they're doing is they're building God in their image. We want our own God, and that is going to be the ultimate attempt of Psalm 2. God will laugh at them, the Bible tells us. You can't get rid of God, but it's an attempt to, and they're going to develop through this. Here's your God. Here's your book.
It's Nimrod, the Tower of Babel. You know, it's us going up, and you know, you just hear Noel Harari, and that guy spews forth exactly what the narrative is for the elites right now. We're destined to be transformed as human beings, and that we are useless meat eaters and all the rest of the nonsense they do. So it is sobering, to say the least, of how much disregard there is for human life and the things that we hold so dearly.
Yeah. You know, Scott, I have a hard time, this is me, believing that there's actually, there's really an atheist that's ever lived. Satan clearly is not an atheist. Clearly, right? None of his demons are. They believe the Lord and tremble. So yeah, I think, and one of the proofs of Antichrist and the things that the Yuval Noah Hararis are looking at and talking about, Antichrist himself is a proof that men have to worship something. And what you see going with, we have to cast off this from us, let's write our own AI Bible, like Yuval Harari and the rest of them say, is evidence, without them saying it, we don't believe in God, but we'll just create this. Well, then you're going to end up worshiping Antichrist. So there is this element of, it's there.
There's already AI Jesus. Remember, you can chat with AI.
AI Jesus, AI pastors, all these different things.
That's a pit of hell problem right there. No one should ever do that. Just a word of encouragement there.
Yeah,
a word
exhortation,
of warning.
A word of warning. Yeah. Well, you think of it. Satan is very good at wrapping the lie with some truth. So I've seen some of the AI Jesus things that have been out there. I'm going, there's enough truth in it to make people go, yeah, that sounds good. Well, it also sounds good that we should also all get along. Well, wait a minute. At the expense, do we not tell the truth? You know. But I mean, this is what Satan does, and this is. So AI can be used for good, but we can see all this trap being set. Then we throw in quantum computing. Scott, I know I have a lot more questions, but we're kind of out of time. So I'm going to ask you this. You always have great thoughts for everybody to take with them. What would you share with everybody?
Well, I think the first thing I'd like to say, Tom, is, we see a lot. And by the way, it's real what's happening, and the things that are stage set and being prepared today, you cannot deny that that's happening today. And the implications of what is coming is both for now and the elites pushing over dominoes to affect our world and collapse, the United States and other countries, according to the number 8 principle of the 2030 agenda. The U.S. will no longer be a superpower, so it affects us very much. And we're waiting for that domino or set of dominoes to still fall yet. And it's coming, but it hasn't happened yet. So we know a lot of things are coming, Tom, but we have to absorb that and think critically about it, process fear and anxiety through the lens of the trajectory of our redemptive plan with the Bible, and don't let that stuff shake us. We are the ones, the Watchman community, that have been preparing for years for this moment in time. We were born in this generation. We've witnessed these things. We were onion peeled the eyes, away so we could see things as they really are from a watchman's point of view, a biblical worldview. The Ezekiel, 3:33 warning of a watchman's accountability. And so we have a lot of work to do, and we should be a center of influence and calmness to say to people as we see them freaking out and panicking, let me come and pray with you. Let me share what I know. And in that discussion, it's not a dump truck moment where we unload. It's about sharing enough to get their journey as a watchman or watchwoman started, and then to encourage them to be a good Berean and always elevate the Bible. And by the way, I'm not watching or looking at my online iPad Bible anymore. I've recommitted to a physical Bible, and I just finished Psalms today. So, do things like that, prepare the best that you can, and don't be shaken. There's a reason why Jesus has said over and over again, you have to prevail and be an overcomer. And this is the exercise. We have to have the right behaviors now to give maximum encouragement, instruction, teaching, benefit of our faith into the next generation as we are almost seeing the end of the church age right now, Tom. So those are my thoughts right now.
Hey, man, I want to thank you so much for what you shared. And also, I want to point this out, too, something that you did that is so refreshing, because I think a lot of times when it comes, Scott, as you know, when it comes to Bible prophecy, some people get so caught up in the rapture is going to happen tomorrow that they're not involved. They're just not. And they're forgetting, listen, we don't know when it's going to happen. In fact, just to remind everybody, Scott's also the one who wrote the Rapture Kit. So Scott, as I tell people, I still buy green bananas, it's looking, listen, I hope we're raptured today, but if we're not, what do we do? We do have the next generation right here within the staff that we have at Hope for Our Times. Almost everybody is the next generation that works here. And we got to do everything that we possibly can in the meantime. Hey, we could get raptured tonight, but what if we're not? And 5 years ago, Scott, I dared to say, what if we're still here 5 more years? Boy, people lit me up 5 years ago and said, how could you say such a thing? We'll all be gone by then. Well, here it is 5 years later, and we went through quite a bit of stuff. And I really appreciate what you said, because we need to be watchmen and watchwomen, warning and until he comes, until Jesus calls us home. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. Scott, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great. Don't forget, everybody, we do have the Rapture Kit, thanks to Scott. And we also have this is free also. We'll add this with the Rapture Kit, the Rapture pamphlet. It is so cool, just outstanding, done by Pastor James at Perspective and Prophecy. So check it out. Scott, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate you. Appreciate all your work. I'll try to get on the next roundtable with you and John and Britt and Patrick.
That would be nice. Thank you.
It would be nice. So I'll try to get on there with you guys at that channel too. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Great program. God bless you all, and we'll be talking to you soon.